Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2024 Steelers mock draft. We're going to go through every single pick, and just for a disclaimer, I do not think this is who Pittsburgh will take. It's just like a fun little mock draft that I would like them to select these guys, but at the end of the day, some of these picks, there'll be reaches. I feel like some of them will probably be off the board by this time, or by the time they draft, anyways. So this is what I'm hoping they pick. I think this is all the positions are positions of need. So let's jump right into it. First pick, everybody knows Pittsburgh needs a center, and why not get the best center in the draft? And Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon. So he won the nation's top center award last year. He was on a great team, played with Bo Nix, the quarterback who will be drafted first round this year. He was also a finalist. The entire offensive line was a finalist for the Joe Moore Award, which is the best offensive line in college football. And we all know the center heads the offensive line. So, really with Jackson Powers Johnson, his most impressive stat to me is in 714 snaps at Oregon, he only allowed one sack. That's pretty incredible. He's great in the run game as well. And he's really the only center in the NFL draft that's projected first round. Centers usually don't go first round, so we'll see what Pittsburgh does with it, but I feel like it's not a reach. I think they need a center. They don't have a center on the entire roster. They have a third string guy, I should say, from last year. They're not going to go into the season with him starting. He's a good backup guy. But if Jackson Powers Johnson is there with the 20th pick, which he will be, I think it's a no-brainer. I've seen a lot of other mock drafts say, pass center in the first round, get him in the second and third. I don't think they should do that. It's really the main position of need. So why not attack it early and get it out of the way? That's what I would do. We'll see what Pittsburgh ends up doing. When you're talking about position of needs with Pittsburgh, the second most position of need is definitely wide receiver. I think they get their guy in the second round. They're definitely going center receiver. I don't know if it's going to be first round center, second round receiver, or vice versa. We'll see what happens. I love Roman Wilson out of Michigan. He's a deep threat, and we just brought in Russell Wilson, who throws one of the most pretty deep balls I've ever seen in my life. It's very well documented. He loves to push the ball down the field. This guy ran a 4.39 40 at the combine. That's anytime you're in the 4.3s, you're automatically going to jump up draft boards, just because of that speed. You just can't teach that kind of speed. He's a huge team need. And his numbers aren't going to jump out at you, but really it's because he played in a run-heavy offense that played a really good defense, and they ran the ball a lot. So didn't have a great quarterback either. I know a lot of people are high on J.J. McCarthy. I'm not. So, but after the combine, Roman Wilson's stock went up, and he's going to get drafted early second round. We have an early second-round pick. I don't think he's a first-round guy, so I think it fits perfectly for what we need and when we need him. So I think this is another no-brainer. If Roman Wilson's there when we pick, I think we absolutely take him. So when we go, we're talking about position of needs. Center's the first, wide receiver second, and defensive back is definitely the third big-time need for Pittsburgh. I think they address it in the third round. Audrey Phillips, this is really a guy that's been under the radar throughout the entire draft process. He is very raw. That's the main thing with Audrey. He's only got 2 years, really, of game experience. He isn't great in the run game. Most corners aren't. He's really good in zone coverage, and they put him a lot in man this year. That's not really his game. They moved him out to the outside in man. Some guys can do it, some excel at it, some don't. He's more of an inside guy that can play the zone really well, and that fits exactly what Pittsburgh runs. They already have a lockdown corner that can play the outside man coverage. I think Audrey would be great throwing the slot. especially nickel and dime packages. And like I said, he's raw, so he's going to take it maybe a year or two to really develop into his full potential. But in the third round, I think it's a great bargain for what you can get him. And there's not real. I mean, there's a lot of corners in this draft, but a lot of them are going to go early. So I think you use center and receiver for your first 2 picks, and then I think you definitely attack defensive back in your third or fourth round pick, whether it be corner or safety. But if Audrey Phillips is there, that's who I would pick. And Ricky Pearsall, I don't know if a lot of people really know of Ricky Pearsall. He's out of Florida. This guy is a do-it-all guy. He's a slot guy, but he's vertical. He can run every route on the route tree. And if we look at his numbers, right under 1,000 yards this year, 65 catches, only 4 touchdowns. He needs to get in the end zone a little bit more. But this guy's a nightmare in man coverage. Linebackers can't guard him. Certainly linebackers can't. Safeties have a hard time. Defensive backs in general just have a hard time covering this guy. He's also a fifth-year senior. He's got over 170 catches in his career. Audrey Phillips is a really raw guy. Ricky Pearsall is a complete opposite. With the whole COVID year happening in 2020, really a lot of these guys are fifth, even six-year guys coming out, which is unheard of before the whole COVID year. He used his COVID year. He got an extra year and really excelled his senior year. He does need to get a little bit better and recognizing zone coverage. He will. That's what the NFL is all about, is getting better. So I know, taking a receiver in the second round and then coming back and get one in the fourth round is probably not going to happen. But I think if he's there, they get him because they brought him in for a pre-draft visit. And usually when Pittsburgh goes that extra length and brings in guys for a pre-draft visit, they usually draft him or at least try to get him if he's going to be there. If he's going to be there in the fourth, we'll see about it. But I love him. I love him out of Florida. I love an experienced receiver that can run the entire route tree. And if there's one thing Pittsburgh can do, it's draft receivers. It doesn't matter where at in the draft. If we look back, they got Antonio Brown in the 6th round, Deontay Johnson in the 3rd round. The list goes on and on of guys that they've got late in the draft that ended up being really good guys. I know the Chase Claypool draft pick doesn't look great now, but at the time it did. He was a late 2nd round guy. Not many people had heard of him out of Notre Dame. So we'll see what they do with receiver. That's the last 2 receivers. That's the only 2 receivers I have them drafting. They're definitely taking one. I think they take 2. We'll see. Moving on to the 4th round, another 4th round pick, Roger Rosengarten. I don't know if a lot of people know him. He's a tackle out of Washington. I know that Troy Fraganda, the other tackle from Washington's really the one getting all the headlines. This is a guy who was a part of that offensive line that did win the Joe Moore Award that he's talking about with Jackson Powers Johnson. Oregon's offensive line was runner-up. Washington's offensive line won it. Now, a lot of people got to see this guy in the national championship game, and it was the worst game of his career. So I guess a lot of scouts, analysts really shied away from him because he really did have an abysmal college football championship. Really struggled against Michigan. Michigan also had one of the best defenses in the country, so I think it's a little unfair just to judge him off one game. He's got great size. That's the number one thing that stands out with Roger. He's 6'5". He's got quick hands, not the quickest feet. So he's a lot better in the run game than he is in the pass game. That usually doesn't transition well in the NFL, especially in a pass-heavy NFL that it is today. I think he's a bargain in the 4th round, especially late in the 4th round. I think he'll surely be there. Pittsburgh's going to attack offensive line. I don't know if they specifically go tackle or guard. We know they're going center. So I think this is a great fit for Pittsburgh. He's a guy that we don't need him to start immediately. We have 2 starting tackles and Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle, right tackle Broderick Jones. So I think this is a guy that can be a death piece at worst. But best case scenario, he sits a year, learns behind both those guys, and then in 2025, he's our starting right tackle because they're probably going to move Broderick Jones to left tackle. So I think he's a great bargain. Like I said, I don't see why we wouldn't get him if he's there. We've already tackled all the other positions of need: receiver, defensive back, and center. So I like Rosengarten. As I said, he's kind of flown on the radar because of that one game, but I think he's an upside guy. I love the size on this guy, and he's a 2-year starter who's a redshirt junior, so he has a pretty good amount of experience, especially with the red shirts. So, and moving on to the very last pick, I love this guy. A lot of people don't. Spencer Rattler, quarterback out of South Carolina. So another guy, the numbers aren't going to jump out of you. He was also pressured on 70% of his dropbacks in college. That has to be a record. That's insane. We just talked about Rosengarten and really good offensive line play. South Carolina had the worst offensive line in college football for 2 years in a row. So that was 70% of his total dropbacks at the University of South Carolina. That's 2 full years. That's a lot of pressures. So this guy has a ton of experience. He's a 4-year starter, 2 years at Oklahoma, 2 years at South Carolina. Anytime an experienced quarterback comes up, I automatically give an edge to him. Experience is huge in any part of the football, especially when you play quarterback. He's also mobile. He's not a Lamar Jackson, but he's a mobile guy in the pocket. Somebody that can definitely extend plays in the pocket. He always keeps his eyes downfield. He runs when he needs to. But if you look at the quarterback room for Pittsburgh, you have Russell Wilson as your starter, Justin Fields as your backup. I would love Spencer Rattler just to slide in that third quarterback role. You never know what could happen. You've seen the most recent example, Brock Purdy, the very last pick in the NFL draft, and this guy's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So I think he's worth the gamble, especially as a 6th, 7th round guy. You're not going to get great talent. I know I just cited Brock Purdy, but that's an exception to the rule, really, to be honest with you. So Spencer Rattler's there. I'd take him. You never know with the injuries, and maybe he plays really good in preseason, and maybe you can just trade him for more draft capital. Really, anything can happen with 6th, 7th round guys, especially when they play quarterback. I think it's a good bet. And speaking of that, Spencer Rattler really bet on himself going to South Carolina because Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick, went to Oklahoma, and he had to transfer out. He went to South Carolina. They didn't have great success, but as I mentioned, they did not have a great offensive line, and without a great offensive line, you're not going to be great really anywhere, to be honest with you. So that'll wrap up the mock draft. As I mentioned at the beginning, I don't think this is exactly who Pittsburgh will take. I can definitely see Pittsburgh, passing on a first-round center, getting one in the second round. Centers, like I mentioned, typically don't go first round. But I think if he's there, they would not be very smart to pass up on him. Now, if teams are shying away from him, I can see them maybe trading back in the draft, maybe get 2 second-round picks and still getting their guy and getting another pick at the middle or the end of the draft from another team that wants to move up to number 20. So, the draft is always interesting. You really never know what a team's going to do, especially on draft nights and all the draft trades starts calling in. It's really interesting, and it's always fun to throw together these mock drafts. But I would love if they drafted all these guys just because they attack positions of needs: center, receiver, defensive back, offensive line. I feel like this is the best route they can take, but we'll see what happens. So, again, don't know if this is exactly who they'll pick, but we'll see. Thank you all for listening in. Until next time.